All right, here we go. So we are looking at section 4.3, part 2. We're just going to keep going with our trig functions around different coordinates, quadrants on the coordinate plane. So let's start off with a bell ringer, refresh our memory on what we were doing in the last set of notes. So this point, -5, -8, this will be in a third quadrant. So we go to the left 5, we go down 8, put a point. So there's our point -5, -8. Connect that with the origin, and then we connect it straight up with the x-axis to form our right triangle. Here's the angle we're looking at. The x-coordinate is -5, the y-coordinate is -8, and then we do Pythagorean theorem. Hopefully you are good enough with Pythagorean theorem by now that I don't need to go through that with you. Pythagorean theorem will give us the square root of 89 for the hypotenuse. Remember, in the previous set of notes, we learned at the hypotenuse that our value needs to be positive. So even though when we take the square root of 89, it would be plus or minus from what we did in previous math classes, it's only going to be the positive value here because r is defined as a distance. So we're ready to run through our 6 trig functions. So we have sine of theta. So sine, here's our angle. All right, this is the angle we're looking at. Opposite is -8. Over hypotenuse, square root of 89. Okay, and then cosecant, we will just take that and flip the fraction, reciprocal, square root of 89 over -8. And again, where you put the negative, it doesn't really matter. When we go from our fractions back into a triangle, back into the coordinate plane, then it will matter where it goes. But for your answer, it doesn't really matter where we put that negative sign. All right, cosine. For cosine, we have adjacent. Now we're looking at -5 is adjacent over hypotenuse is square root of 89. For secant, we will just flip our fraction. So square root of 89 over -5. And the last two here, tangent of our angle. Tangent is opposite, -8. Over adjacent is -5, so that'll just be an 8 over 5. And again, we do not want to make that a mixed number. We just want to leave that as 8 over 5. Don't change it or anything. Just leave it as 8 over 5. Last one, cotangent. We're just going to take our 8 over 5 and flip that fraction. So we have 5 over 8, reciprocal of tangent for that one. So those are the 6 trig functions you should get there for that point, -5, -8. So now what we're going to do, instead of just having a point, we're going to be looking at what about angle measures. So if I have this angle measure, and we'll start with degrees and work our way into radians, but if I have this angle measure, how do I do this? So I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step what I do for each of these. So first of all, big plus sign. There's my coordinate plane. We need to figure out where is 150 degrees. Well, since these are all right angles, if we don't already know, this is 90 degrees, this is 180 degrees, 90 more would be 270 degrees, and then back here where we started is either 0 degrees or when we go one time around the circle, that's 360 degrees, right? Coterminal angles. So 150 degrees, well, that's going to end up over here somewhere, right? 150 degrees will be over there. So that's starting here, going over to there is 150 degrees. What we need to do is we need to find the reference angle. So when I say reference angle, what I'm asking you for is what is this angle in here? Well, if it's 150 going from here to this line, where I drew my triangle, and I know it's 180 degrees, you know, that makes the straight line, the black line over there. How much further do I have to go? Well, 30 more degrees. So once I figure that out, now I'm ready to fill in my side lengths of the triangle. This is a right triangle, okay? So 150 degrees plus 30 degrees will get me to the x-axis. So when we are measuring these angles, it always needs to go off the x-axis, okay? So even though we know that this is 40 degrees from the y-axis, I don't care about that. I care about the x-axis. So it's 30 degrees off the x-axis. Now I have to fill in my side lengths. Well, I already know the 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? 30, 60, 90 triangle tells me some information. So what that tells me is opposite of 30 is 1, Adjacent of 30 is square root of 3, and the hypotenuse is 2. But we got to wait for a second here because one of these or two of these side lengths will be negative. And in this case, because I'm going to the left, this will be a negative root 3. This is going up, so that's positive. So anytime we're going up or we're going to the right, those are positive. Anytime we're going down or to the left, those are negative. Okay, so now I have my setup. So that's what we do. Big plus sign, figure out what quadrant are we in, what's my reference angle, and then I fill in the sides. The last step is to look at your trig function is sine. Well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite is 1, hypotenuse is 2. So there's my answer, 1 over 2. All right, next one. Cotangent of 120. Same process. Big plus sign, 120 degrees. That's going to end up over here, right? So 0, there's 90, 120 degrees. But remember, the important part here is how far is that from the x-axis? That is 60 degrees from the x-axis. 120 plus 60 gets me to 180. Fill in your sides. Opposite of 60 is square root of 3. Adjacent to 60 is 1, and because it's going to the left, that's a negative 1, and the hypotenuse is 2. Okay, so big plus sign. 120 degrees is in quadrant 2. 60 degrees is my reference angle because that's going inside there. Fill in your side lengths. So opposite of 60 is square root of 3. Adjacent is negative 1. Hypotenuse is 2. Also, I should pause here and let you know, I'm going down the left column. This is letter C. So I should have mentioned that at the beginning. C is, we're going down the left column. I'm going to do those three, and then I'm going to suggest that you pause the video and do the right column, and then I'll put the right column on. So I should have mentioned that to begin with. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Okay, so now I need my reference or my ratio for cotangent. Well, since cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, tangent's opposite over adjacent, right? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. That means cotangent is adjacent over opposite. So adjacent is negative 1. Opposite is square root of 3. And I'm okay if you leave it like that. You don't need to rationalize. You certainly can rationalize if you want to, but I would just say leave it as negative 1 over root 3. That's fine. All right, E. This is E. First up, big plus sign. Now 570 degrees. Well, that means I went around the unit circle, or I went around the coordinate plane once. You keep hearing me referring to unit circle. I'm not trying to bring that up too early. It is something we will talk about later. So when you hear me say unit circle, just ignore me for now. We're going to get to that later. So 570 degrees is already past 360. So if I do my coterminal, this is, and I subtract 570 minus 360, this is 210 degrees. Okay, so that kind of helps because now I got, here I'm starting here, I have 90, 180, that means 210 will be down here. So from here to here is 210 degrees. We still make our triangle off the x-axis, but I need to find my reference angle. So if this going from here over to here is 180, I have to go 30 more to get inside for my reference angle. So that's 30 degrees. Okay, 180 plus 30 more gets me 210. Opposite of 30 is 1, but because I'm going down, it's a negative 1. Adjacent is square root of 3, but because I'm going left, it's negative square root of 3. And the hypotenuse is always positive, so that's 2. And now I need my ratio for cosecant. Well, that's the reciprocal of sine, so hypotenuse over opposite. So hypotenuse is 2, opposite is negative 1, so negative 2 is my final answer. All right, so I want you to pause the video and try letters B, D, and F. Try those three and see how you do. All right, so hopefully you paused that and gave those a try. I'm just going to run through these here quick now. So 315 degrees is in quadrant 4. Let me back up. I want to do my color coding here. So 315 is down here. Remember, that's going from here all the way over to here is 315. But what I really need to know is this piece here. So 315 plus 45 will get me 360. Opposite of 45 is 1, but because it's going down, that's a negative 1. Adjacent is 1, and that went to the right, so that's positive 1. And the hypotenuse is square root of 2. Ratio for tangent is opposite over adjacent, so negative 1 over 1, which is negative 1. So hopefully you got negative 1 for that one. If not, copy it down, make sure you got it. All right, next problem here. Secant of 300. So 300 degrees. Again, we're down here. Okay, so we go over here is 90, 180, 270, 300 to get all the way around to there. But again, the important part is this angle measured off the x-axis, which in this case is 60. 300 plus 60 gives me 360. Opposite of 60 is square root of 3. But again, because it's going down, it's negative. Adjacent is 1. That's going to the right, so it's positive. And the hypotenuse is 2. The ratio for secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so hypotenuse over adjacent. So hypotenuse is 2. Adjacent is 1. My answer is 2. Positive 2. All right, last one. We have another coterminal here. So cosine of 390. So go ahead and subtract 360 from 390. So we have cosine of 30 degrees. That's pretty simple. Well, 30 degrees is in the first quadrant. And how far is it off the x-axis? Well, it's 30 degrees, because that's what we just did. We measured from here to here to get 30. Opposite of 30 is 1. It went up, so positive 1. Adjacent is square root of 3, and it's to the right, so positive square root of 3. Hypotenuse is 2. Ratio for cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, so square root of 3 over hypotenuse is 2. There's my final answer. All right, next up, we're going to do the same thing now. We're just looking at all 6 trig functions. So this is on the back of your paper, so flip your paper over, and we're going to be looking at this problem on the back. I want to do this one with you, and then I saved the previous problem for you to try. So this one I want you to try. So first of all, we need to recognize that 15 over 4 is something bigger than 2 pi. So we need to subtract 2 pi until we get a number that's between 0 and 2 pi. So if we subtract 2 pi from this, we get 7 pi over 4. So that's between 0 and 2 pi. And if it helps even more, we can convert this into degrees and get 315 degrees. Okay, so 315 degrees, that may help us a lot when we're trying to determine where is our angle. So 315 degrees is down here, like that. So that's starting here, ending there. And again, the important thing is how many degrees, how far do we have to go to get back to 360? So that's 45 for my reference angle. So opposite of 45 is 1, but because it's going down, that's a negative 1. Got a right triangle here. Adjacent up here is 1, but because it's going to the right, we'll leave that as a positive 1. And the hypotenuse is square root of 2. All right, so now we need to find all of our trig functions. We want all 6 of them. Instead of like the previous problems, we just found 1, and now we're going to run through all 6. So sine, and I'm going to go back to my original 15 pi over 4. So that's this angle here still, it's coterminal. Opposite over hypotenuse, negative 1 over square root of 2. And again, once I know that, now I know cosecant, because it's just the reciprocal of, oops, not 7, I want 15. 15 pi over 4. So that is square root of 2 over negative 1, which is negative square root of 2. All right, cosine 15 pi over 4. And again, if at any time I'm going too fast, pause the video, get caught up. Don't try to keep up with me. If you need to pause it, just pause it and get caught up. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So 1 over square root of 2. Almost wrote a 3 there. 1 over square root of 2. And now I know secant of 15 pi over 4. It's just the reciprocal, positive square root of 2. And the last two, tangent of 15 pi over 4 is opposite over adjacent, so negative 1 over 1, which is just negative 1. And then cotangent is just the reciprocal of that. Well, the reciprocal, I don't even know what I just did there. The reciprocal of negative 1 is just negative 1. So that's negative 1. All right, so turn your paper back over. And let's look at this other example of 240 degrees. So we're doing the same thing here. I want you to pause this and try it. See how you're doing with these. So pause the video, try this, and then check your answer. All right, so hopefully you paused it and tried this first, but we're going to go through this one now. So 240 degrees is over here. Right, we have 0, 90, 180, and 270, so it's between 180 and 270. And then we subtract 240 minus 180 to get the reference angle of 60 degrees. Adjacent of 60 is 1, but because it's going to the left, it's negative 1. Opposite is square root of 3, but because it's down, it's negative square root of 3. And the hypotenuse is 2. All right, so now we are ready for all of these 6 trig functions. So again, if you have not tried this problem, I want to encourage you to pause the video now. Maybe all you needed was just a little bit of help getting started. And now that you're started, you can do all of these. So I want you to just pause and try to answer the rest of these before I do it. All right, here we go. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, negative square root of 3 over 2. Reciprocal for cosecant, 2 over negative square root of 3. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so negative 1 over 2. Secant is the reciprocal, so that's just negative 2. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, which is just square root of 3. And then cotangent will be the reciprocal, so that's 1 over square root of 3. All right, so again, pause the video, rewind, rewatch anything that you need to make sure you understand. If you still have questions, just let me know.